morning, everyone. I hope you're having a good day so far and everybody's had their coffee and you're all charged up and ready to go. Okay. I sure have enjoyed teaching these last 5 sessions to everyone. I hope it's been enjoyable to you, and I hope you've learned a lot of things that'll be helpful to you in the future. Today we're going to spend a little bit of time. Number one, I want to show you about camera raw, because many of our devices today are shooting in RAW, as well as your cameras are shooting in RAW. And what RAW does is it provides you with all the information that the camera or the device captures at the moment you press that shutter button. Okay. If you shoot, let's say you shoot in JPEG, or you set your camera to shoot in PNG or something like that. Okay. When you do that, it allows the camera to make the choices as to how much of the image it wants to capture. Now, when I say how much the image, I'm talking about the data of the picture. For instance, this screen that I'm sharing right now, there's a lot of different shades of blue in this sky right here, right? Well, there may be, let's just use a fictitious number. Let's just say there's 10,000 shades of blue in there, okay? If you shoot in RAW, the camera will capture all 10,000 shades of that color. Thus, the file is much bigger. For instance, on my Sony camera that I shoot with, my files are 52 megs each. Okay, so you can see how they'll take up a lot of space really, really quickly. But on the other hand, if you should choose to shoot in JPEG or GIF or some other extension, what's going to happen, particularly in JPEG, is the camera is going to decide how much of that 10,000 shades of blue needs to be captured. Okay. So it's going to make the decision for you. It may decide, there's a lot of blue in there. It's probably not that noticeable. So let's just capture 5,000 shades of blue instead of the full 10,000. And that's okay. It usually does a pretty good job. These computers and these cameras are extremely smart. The place where it really comes into play is if you have an image that you, number one, want to blow up really large. Maybe you want to do a 20 by 30 poster or something like that. The more data you can have, the better the print is going to be. Okay. So just keep that in mind. And when you go to editing a photo, like for instance, if we go in here and edit this sky, okay, when we do that, the more data we have for the computer to work with, the better off we're going to be. Okay. So I just wanted you to get a handle on that a little bit. And so I want you to see what happens when you open a raw image, so that when you decide to take a look at this and try it, you'll know how to do it. So what I'm going to do, I'm in Photoshop right here. Okay, so I'm going to go up here and I'm going to open a raw image. So I'm just going to go to File and Open. So I've got a folder here that I've been working in through the class. You probably recognize some of the images here. And I just want to open a couple of different images in here just to show you what Camera Raw can do. So I'm going to click right here. Now, I know it's a raw image because this particular one was shot with a Nikon. Thus, the end of the extension on the end is NEF. Okay. Had it been a Sony, it would have been a different extension. Had it been a Canon, it would have been a different extension. So whatever camera you're shooting in RAW with, that extension is going to look different than most images you look at. Okay. It's not going to say JPEG like these over here. All right. So let's just open this little image right here and let's see what happens. Now, what I want you to see is notice that when I click to open that image, it opened it in an entirely different window. Okay. Now that window it opened it in is a Camera Raw window right here. If you subscribe to Adobe Creative Cloud, Camera Raw is constantly being updated. The reason it's being updated is every time a new camera gets added to the industry, they have to upgrade Camera Raw in order to accommodate that camera. Now, here's what I want you to see. Notice we've got the image open here, and there's actually a timeline, if you will, right down here at the bottom. I want to show you something. If I hit cancel here, and I'm going to go up to File and open again. It should take us back to that same folder. Let's see. Here we go. Now, I've got two raw images in here. Notice the extension NEF right there. So I'm just going to click and drag over the top of these two images to select them both. Okay. Now watch what's going to happen here. Remember before it had on that little timeline, it had one little image down there. But if I hit open now, what it's going to do, it's going to have both images down here. Okay. So if I want to if I want to work on this image right here, I can just click on that one. Okay. If I want to work on this one, I can click on that one. Okay. So it makes it really nice to be able to have multiple images open at the same time to allow me to work on different pictures. Let's look over here on the right-hand side. Okay, let's see. I tell you what, y'all, let me drag this just a wee bit bigger, make it a little bit easier for you to see. That should be a little bit easier there. I hope so. So here's the deal. Notice we opened the camera raw. And remember I told you it's looking at a lot of data. Now, because I shot this in raw, I've got all the data in the sky and all the data on the beach and the buildings. I've got everything is in here. So it's going to make it really easy to make these adjustments over here. Okay. All right. So here's exposure. So I can go right here and pull that little slider in exposure, and I can really overexpose it if I want to, or I can make it darker if I want to. Okay. So a lot of different ways we can go in here and change this. So maybe we'll bump the exposure up just a wee bit. We might want to add some contrast to the image to make it really stand out. See, there's no contrast and there's a whole bunch of contrast. So, you can adjust it to get it the way you want to. Highlights, the highlights are going to affect mostly what you're going to see them in is the sky up here. Okay. So if I've got a sky that's really blown out, this was not blown out too bad. But if I've got one that's blown out, I can go over here and I can actually pull the highlights down and I can get more of the detail in the sky. I don't know if you can see that on this video or not, but if I go all the way up, it really pulls those highlights up. And if I bring it way down, notice I'm getting more detail in those clouds up there. Okay. So it's a personal choice, what you can work with here. Shadows, that's pretty much what it says. If you pull it to the left, it's going to close the shadows down. It's going to make them darker, right? And if I pull it to the right, it's going to open up the shadows. Notice watch this area right here along the beach, okay? Watch that area of land up there, if you will. If I click this shadow button and I pull it all the way to the right, notice I can now see a lot more detail in that area because it has it's opened up those shadows. So that's kind of nice, but it depends on what you're wanting to do. Now I might want to take it down just a little. All right. The whites does exactly what it says. It's going to increase the white or decrease the white in the picture. Okay. Now notice if I pull them up too high, it blows that sky out entirely. Okay. But that may be the look you're going for. All right. So you can make a lot of adjustments here. The black is going to increase the black or take the black out. Okay. If you want kind of a dark, moody picture, you might pull the blacks over a little bit. If you want it to be bright and shiny, you may want to pull it over this way. It's totally up to you what you're going to do with these sliders. Okay. Now, down here, there are a lot more sliders available to you. For instance, under effects right here, if we wanted to put a vignette around the picture, notice we can do that right here. Okay, right here inside of this. Now, all of this editing that we're doing right here in this particular area, it is non-destructive, okay? Meaning that we're not anytime we want to, we can come back into Camera Raw and we can make adjustments again. Okay. So just know that this is non-destructive, so you can come in here and make any changes you want. There's curves you can work with in here. There's color mixing. For instance, maybe I want the luminance of the blue to be darker. Okay. So I set this to luminance right here. I'll come down to where I see the blue and notice what's happening now. Do you see the blue in the picture getting a lot darker? Okay. It's centering in on just the blue in that picture. All right. Or maybe I want the oranges to be a little brighter. Let's see if there's any in here. Yeah, they're right there on the beach. Okay. So maybe I want the beach to be a little shinier or something like that. Now, what I could do too, I could go over here to saturation, okay, right here, and I could say, you know what? I want the blue in the sky to be really saturated. Well, look at there. It finds all the blue in the picture and really bumps it up. Now, there again, it's personal taste, okay? So you set this up just the way you want to. All right. So there's a lot of fun things here that you can play with and work with and just experiment with, if you will. Okay. So I would encourage you to if you've never taken a photograph in camera raw, I would encourage you to go out there, set your camera on your phone or on your camera that you're using, and try doing some pictures in camera raw. Okay. One other thing here in the color area, there's a temperature setting. Temperature meaning that if I pull it to the left, it's going to give me more blue. If I pull it to the right, it's going to give me a lot of more yellow. So I can make, in photography, we call that cooler or warmer. Okay. So you have to decide what, value you want. If you want something very realistic, or do you want something that just kind of expresses what you were trying to say, in the particular picture. So there's a lot of settings here that you can work with. Now, I can go down here to the next picture and I can look at it and I can go, okay, well, look here. The picture seems to be, the shadows seem to be a little bit dark in this. So if I go up to light, maybe I'll open the shadows up a little bit. Look at that. Okay. And it's sunrise, so why don't we go to the color one and let's change the temperature to really warm, to make it look like there's a really bright sunrise coming up there, okay? So we can go in here and make adjustments as we need to get it to the point that we want to. Now there's tools over here on the right-hand side. We really don't have enough time to go through there, but I would encourage you to go in here and play. Now, if I want to, I can hover over a picture, for instance, this one right here, and I could click the little drop down box, and there are some things we can do in there to work on that. Now, I'm going to go ahead and click open, but notice next to the open, there's a drop down right there. Okay. So I can open them as an object, a smart object. We talked about those a couple of weeks ago, or I can open just as a copy of this image. So I'm not working on the original. But I'm just going to choose open, but I want you to notice what's going to happen here. Okay, I'm going to choose open and the image is going to come in, but notice only one image came in. Okay, now the reason only one image came in is because I only had one image selected. Okay, so just know that that's there and that's the way that's going to work. And now if I want to, I can go up here to filter and I can go up here to where it says camera raw filter and I can go in here and it's going to open up that camera raw filter for the image that is selected. Okay. So I wanted you to know about that. It's a really nice area to go in here and try to manipulate your images. Camera Raw gives you a lot of advantages than just working with JPEG, but there again, the drawback to them is that they're very large files. Okay. All right, I want to show you a couple other things in here, and then we're going to move on to some other stuff. If you look at this image there, this building right here is slanted backwards. Okay. And you've probably seen that in photographs before. Like maybe if you shoot up at a big angle at a building or something like that, the building tends to, because of the curvature of the lens, the building seems to lean or something like that. The building's not really leaning. Okay. But it can look like it is. All right. So what we can do here is I'm going to go over here to our layer area And I'm just going to duplicate this background. Okay. So I'm just going to do a Command and J or Control J, whichever computer you're using. And now I'm not working on my original. I'm working on another one. Okay. So I'm going to go right here. And then I think I'm going to go up here and hit the crop tool. Now I know this is a funny tool, but when I hit the crop tool, notice that there is a button up here that says straighten. Okay. When I first started working in Photoshop years ago, we didn't have that straighten tool, but then they added it. But then for the longest time, people were asking questions. Well, where is this straighten tool that you guys have added? And they added it to the crop tool, and we still haven't figured that one out, but that's okay. I guess in a sense, when you straighten an image, it's going to crop it a little bit because you're going to lose part of it. So I'm going to hit straighten. Now, what happens when I get straightened here is I have a little plus mark there. Okay. Now that blue circle around it, that's just I put that there just so you can see the tool better. But notice there's a cross there, and what I can do with that cross is I can drag it over the area that I want to be straight. All right. For instance, if the horizon was really crooked here, and it actually is a little crooked, notice it's low there and it's a little bit higher there. Let's just for the fun of it, let's grab this and we'll drag a line right across the horizon. So what we're doing is we're telling Photoshop, hey, I'd like that area of the image to be straight. So I drag the line across there and I release it, and notice what happened. It completely straightened out the horizon. Now, notice that we're going to lose part of the picture. Okay. Anytime you turn a picture or something like this, you're going to lose some edges. Now that's easy enough to fill in. We're going to look at that in a few minutes too. But I wanted you to see what that would do right there. Now I'm going to hit Control Z, which means undo, right? And I'm going to get this straighten tool again, because remember we started off talking about this building up here, right? So I'm going to go right here, and I kind of would like that gray line right there, that part of the building, to be straight. So I'm going to lay this cursor right there, and I'm going to drag myself a line right down beside the building saying, hey, this line is what I want to be straight, okay? And I'll do that, and look what it did. It completely rolled the image. Now, when it did that, notice it also changed the horizon just a wee bit. Okay, not a lot, but a little bit. But notice it's not completely straight. Now, what we could do if we wanted to is we could come right over, we could lay our cursor to the outside edge of the selection bars. Okay, and we can actually turn and twist. Notice that when I start to pull this, I get these little crosshatch lines across there. So I can actually look at those and I can see I'm looking at right along the edge of this building right here. I'm looking at those cross pieces, and notice there it is way off, and if I pull it back a little bit, I'm getting it a little bit closer to straight right there. Okay. So when you get it to the straight angle that you want, okay, you're just simply going to hit the enter key, or you're going to go right up here and hit this check mark up at the top. Just means check. That's what I want. And notice what's going to happen. Generative fill is going to try to fill in these areas where the crop changed the picture. Okay, so let's watch it and see what happens. Look at here, y'all. It actually did a pretty good job. Notice that we've got three choices over here, and we can try that one, and then we can try this one. Now, notice if you're not looking at it real close, you may not notice the differences. The biggest difference I'm noticing is right down here in this area. And watch that area over there. If I hit there, see, notice it changes over there just a little bit. And maybe I'll hit this one over here. Let's see what that does. So they're all pretty good. There's really nothing wrong with those right there. And so I'll go ahead and choose. I think I like the second one the best. That seems to fill in just a little bit better right there. And so there we go. We've straightened the building out a little bit. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not perfect by a long shot. Okay, but it's a starting place. All right. So I wanted you to see the straighten tool, and it's so easy to use. You just select the crop tool, choose straighten and then drag the line over the area that you want to be straight. And it's going to try to make adjustments to you. Is it perfect? No, nothing in Photoshop is perfect. Okay. But it does a pretty good job. All right. Now, let's talk just a little bit about generative fill and how it works. Okay. It's an amazing tool and does just so much for us, okay, to help us make our images better. Now, what I'm going to do over here, notice I've got all these layers, that I was working on. So I think what I'd like to do is just flatten those layers over there so that we can work on another part of the image. Now, if I wanted to leave this where I could go back and edit it another time, I could do the stack command that I told you about last week, where you hold down the shift and the alternate and the controller command and touch the letter E. When you do that, it's just going to take all these layers and combine them into one. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm holding down the shift, the alternate, and the control or the command. Okay. And I'm going to touch the letter E on my keyboard. All right. When I do that, notice what happened here. Okay. It created a brand new layer with all these changes below that have been corrected on it, which that's kind of helpful. So if I ever needed to get back to here, I could always just delete this layer and start over again. Okay. So it's really, really helpful. Now, what I could do if I wanted to, if I knew that I wasn't going to be making any changes to that in the background, I could come right up here to this left-hand side of my screen right there. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's four little lines, horizontal lines right over there. If I click on those, a large menu is going to open up with an awful lot of things that we could do to this particular image. And one of them being right down here at the bottom is flatten image. Okay. So that's really handy. So if you know you're not going to do any more changes to the image, go ahead and flatten it. It reduces the size a little bit and it makes it a little bit easier to work with. Okay. I want you to notice another little area on here that you may not have ever noticed before. Down here in the far left hand corner, okay, what this is doing down here, y'all, is it is showing you the percentage of magnification you have on this particular image. It's showing you the size of this particular image, and it's showing you what the resolution is currently set at. Okay. Now, if I go in here, I can click this little arrow right there at the bottom, and this window will open up and it will allow me to see different stats about this particular image right here. So just know that that's down there just to help you kind of know where you're going and where you've been, that kind of thing. Okay. All right. So now what I think I'm going to do is go over here to the background layer and I'm going to duplicate that layer. Remember, we did that by holding down the command or the control key and we touched the letter J for jump. So what we did is we jumped a copy up to a new layer. All right, good enough? Okay, so we've jumped that copy up there. Now we're going to start working on this image just a little bit to get rid of a few of the distractions, and we're going to let Generative Fill do that for us. Okay, now Generative Fill is available on the latest version of Photoshop. If you notice up here in the top left-hand corner, I'm running Photoshop 2024, which is the latest one. The way I have my Photoshop preferences set up is that I've got it set up that whenever an update comes out, just automatically apply it. I don't have to worry about it. So yeah, generative fill is there for everybody. Now, if you go out and download, like I would always suggest you keep this one on your computer, but there's also a version of Photoshop called Photoshop 2024 Beta. Okay. And if you sign up for the beta group, what they're going to do is send you updates to the beta version where you're going to have early release or early ability to view some of the newest things they're working on that haven't made it to the full public version. Okay. So the beta version, I subscribe to it too. And I don't teach with it because not everybody has that. But if you sign up for the beta version, you can actually, it'll show you newer things that they're working on now. Does it crash? Yeah, sometimes it does. Okay. And that's the reason they put the beta version out there, is because they want people to be able to try it out. And it gives them a chance to see what other people are doing using that version. And then they get reports back on how it, if it crashed, why, and what happened, and that kind of thing. And it helps Adobe and their programmers build it in. So there's two versions that you could actually get your hands on. But anyway, but yes, generative fill is there. It's floating right down here at the bottom. Okay.
Thank
So
you.
you're welcome. Any other questions that I might could help with real quick? All right, here's what I'm going to do, y'all. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to get the lasso tool. Notice it's one, two, three tools down from the top. Okay. And I'm going to click the lasso, but notice when I click on the lasso, I get these other types of lasso tools. Okay. We're just going to use the regular one right now. Okay. So what I want to do is see these little spots right down here. Let me blow that up a little bit right there, that little spot, and maybe that little spot right there. Um, Kind of distracts me a little bit. I know I'm being real picky, but I want to demonstrate something. So if I take the lasso tool and just make a circle, nothing fancy. Okay. I just made a circle around it. Okay. Now remember, I told you that on any of the selection tools, if you hold down the shift key, notice there is a plus coming up right behind the lasso tool. So if I hold the shift key down, it actually allows me to add to the selection. Okay. So I click and drag. Now I've got two things selected. Okay. Now, on the other hand, if I want to take away, I press the alternate key. Notice that a minus appears at the 5 o'clock area. And if I go, whoopsie daisy, sorry about that. If I go up here and I press the alternate key and I circle this area right here, notice that selection is no longer there. Okay. So you can take away or you can add. I'm going to add right now, add this to that particular selection right there. Okay, so I've got two areas selected right now that I think I'd maybe like to get rid of. Okay, so I'm just going to come right down here. I'm not going to give it any kind of command. I'm just going to click on where it says generative fill. Okay, and I'll click that. And notice it comes up and it's asking me, Steve, do you want to put something in those selected areas? And right now, no, I don't want to. So I'm just going to hit generate. Okay. Now you say, what's it going to generate, Steve? Well, it's going to look at the area around it and it's going to see if it can remove that particular items on the screen or and fill them in with items that's around it. Now notice what it just did, y'all. Those two areas here, I can turn that layer on and off, I believe. Yep, there it is. You see, there's those two areas that were there. Okay, and if I turn that generative fill layer back on, notice those distractions are gone. Okay, it does a super, super job. Now, how large of an area could I choose? Maybe I want it to look like this dad and daughter are walking down the beach by themselves. Okay, so why don't I take this right here? Okay, and we'll make a little circle right around that person. This guy in the red jacket, he's really sticking out there, because that red jacket really stands out. So let's make a selection around him. And I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and circle this guy here. Let's just see what happens. All right. So we got three areas selected. I'm going to hit the generative fill. Okay. And then I'm going to hit generate. I'm not going to give it any command. I'm just going to hit the word generate. And it's going to take a okay, depending on the speed of your computer, it's going to take it a moment and it's going to look at these areas and it's going to try to fill those areas with what looks like surrounded area. Now look at this, y'all. Look at this. They're gone. Okay. All right. It's really amazing here. I'll turn this layer off. There it is right there. And look how much distraction those people really were. Look, you got all those people walking over there. But if we turn that on like that, it's almost like dad and daughters on the beach, except for these folks right up here. Let's just see. I've not tried this. Let's just see. What if I select all these people right up here? I have no idea what's going to happen here, y'all. So I'm going to select them all. I'm going to hit generative fill. and I'm going to hit generate. Okay. And it's going to look at that area up there once again, and it's going to try to fill it in with something that looks appropriate to that area. It's going to try to match all the surroundings to see what it can do. And look at that, y'all. And I actually, if you look over here on the right hand side, it actually gives us three different choices. Okay, so here's another choice right there, and then there's another choice right there. So you can actually go in here and choose which one really works well for you. Okay, I'm going to choose that one. So now we got dad and daughter on the beach all by themselves. All right, now we could, if we wanted to, we could just get rid of them too. Okay, now, I just wonder what would happen if we got rid of this area back here. Okay. So let's just for the fun of it. I don't think this is going to work, but you know what? I'm going to try it. And we're going to go up here and copy, and we're going to select that whole area. We're going to hit generative fill and we're going to hit generate. Now let's see what happens. It's going to have to work hard to make that work. Now I've not tried this yet, so I'm curious as to what's going to happen because sometimes really strange things will happen when you try to use generative fill. Now notice it filled it with some more buildings. That doesn't work. Okay, so let's try this one over here. It kind of it took the buildings away, but it added some palm trees and maybe a parking lot. I don't know what that thing is right there. Let's see what the other one looks like. Okay. Oh, look at there. That one's pretty good. We could clean that up a little bit. It almost looks like there's some trees and palm trees and stuff like that up there. So you can see you can go through here. So if I turn that layer off, there it is before. And there it is after. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? Okay. So it actually did a pretty good job. Now there'd be some cleaning we'd have to do in here. I would get rid of that, whatever that gold light is right there. And I'd probably get rid of this tall, I'm going to say that's a light pole maybe or something like that. Okay. So we can actually go in there and make changes to make this picture be exactly the way we want it to be. All right. Any questions about what we've done right here so far? All right, let's try something. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go right here and I'm just going to draw a little bitty shape right there next to the little girl. Okay. Now, I'm going to go down here to generative fill and click on it. Now it's asking me, what would you like to put in this space? Okay. I think I would like to put a dog. All right, let's see if there's a dog that will go there. So I'm just going to type just one word, just dog, and I'm going to hit generate. And it's going to think about it and say, is there a dog that really would fit into this picture that it can find and that kind of thing. So it's looking, it's trying to figure it out. And notice right here, it's okay, but it looks like the dogs have got kind of a weird back to it right there. Okay. Let's look at one of the other options. Okay. So there's a dog, looks sort of like he's playing, but he doesn't really look like he fits the picture very good. And there's another one, but the problem with that dog is he's kind of big compared to the little girl, right? So you may look at that and say, well, you know what? That just doesn't work at all. Let's hit generate one more time. Okay. So I'll come down here and hit generate again. It's going to try again and give me three more choices as to what we might like to have in that particular area. Okay. So now we've got three more choices and we can go here. We can try that. Now that's actually a little bit better right there. Okay. So, and then here's another one. I'm not sure what that is right there, but anyway. And then we go here and we've got actually a group of dogs. All right. Now, I'm not crazy about any of those. So let's just do this. I'm going to make sure that layer is highlighted. I'll come down here to the trash can. I'm going to delete it. All right. Now, let's try something else. Let's remember a minute ago, I drew kind of a large circle. Let's go right here and let's make the circle a bit smaller. Let's just see what happens. And if we go generative fill right here, and I'm going to type in GOLDEN retriever. All right. Let's don't tell it dog. Let's just tell it golden retriever and hit enter. and let's just see what's going to happen. I've got a feeling I've got the selection area too large, too small, but let's take a look. Yeah, that dog doesn't have any front legs. Look at that. Okay. So it doesn't quite understand golden retrievers, although that I believe that is a golden retriever, but he's facing the wrong direction. But but you can see how it doesn't quite sometimes it just doesn't work and you just have to keep trying, okay? I've learned over time that the shape of the circle that you draw has something to do with the picture. In fact, let's do one more little experiment. I want to show you what I'm talking about. If I go here and I draw what could be seen as a dog, okay, that's gonna be a big dog. You can tell I'm not an artist, y'all. Okay, so if I go there and I want to hit um golden retriever. All right, let's just see what happens. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes the shape that you draw the selection has some impact on what it puts in that particular place. Now, that's not bad. That's actually looks like a golden, but he's all shrunk out of space. Okay, let's look at another one here, right there. Ah, look, that one's a little better. Doesn't look like a golden, but that's okay. And that's definitely not a golden. So you can see sometimes it'll get it right and it's just amazing. And other times it's just not there yet. All right. Now, I'm going to go ahead and delete that out of there. So you can see some of the fun things that you can do with this particular area. Now I'm going to go up here to another photo up here. We worked on this photo just a while back, remember? And we tried to figure out, how to make it better. All right. And so what I want to do is I want to use generative fill here to increase this particular image size. Notice this image, it looks like it's cut off over here on the right-hand side. Okay. So I tell you what, let's do. Let's duplicate the background, Command or Control J. All right. So I'm going to do that. Now, this is called generative extend. Okay. And here's what I'm going to do, y'all. I'm going to go up here and get the rectangle marquee tool, the second tool from the top, right? And I'm going to come right over here on this side of the image. Okay. And I'm just going to draw a little selection, just like that. Okay. Just a little bitty sliver right over there. Wait a minute. I want to do this a different way because it's kind of fun. I'm going to unselect this. I'm going to get the delete key. Let's do this. Now, notice once you use delete, there again, this is one of those weird uses of delete. Notice it gives you these handlebars all the way around. If I come over here to the right-hand side, this middle handlebar, I'm just going to pull it over like this and say, okay, Photoshop, I want to fill this in and make it look like it belongs in this particular picture. Let's see if it can work. Now, I'm not going to give it any command down here in the generative fill box, okay? But I'm going to hit generate, all right? And it's going to take a minute. Notice the generating box up at the top. And there's always some good little tips in there, too. You may want to look at some of those sometimes and read them while the fill is trying to figure everything out. But look what it just did. Okay. Now there's one mountain. I guess that could fit in there. It just seems kind of weird to build a house at the edge there. But let's look at another one. So we're gonna look at this one. Oh, look at that, y'all. That's pretty cool right there. That's not bad at all. And let's see what the other one looks like. Okay. Done's okay. I mean, the mountain seems a little bit close, and I'm not sure what this dark area is right here, but it's better. I think I like this middle one the best, okay? Because the mountains do to me, they look like they're off in the distance, okay? I like that. All right. Now, I think what I'd like to do, y'all, is I'm going to click on this crop area again and see this little road down here. What would happen if we drug this downward? Let's just see, just for the fun of it. And we're not putting anything in here right now. Okay. We're going to hit generate and it's going to take a minute. It's going to try to figure out, what belongs in that area down there at the bottom. What would be logical, to be in that particular area. It only takes a moment or two. You see the generating box up here. And that's going to give us three choices over here on the right hand side that we can look at. And look at here, y'all. Looks like an old abandoned road, that's right here. Let's see what the other ones look like. Okay. It extended. Oh, look at that, y'all. It's like the grass has grown up right there or something. Let's see what the other one is. Ah, this one, they just brought the old road right on around like that. Okay. So maybe that was their driveway where their truck was sitting. In fact, let's try this. Let's go in here. Let's get the rectangle marquee. I have no idea what's fixing to happen. And I'm going to go right here and I'm just going to draw a box right there. Okay. Let's go to generative fill. And in that box, let's put a broken down DOW truck. Let's say rusted. Let's make it really hard. Okay. All right. So a broken down, rusted truck. And then I'll hit enter. And it's going to say, okay, I'm going to put a broken down, rusted truck in that particular area right there. And let's just see what happens. Never can tell. It's always fun just to see what Photoshop will come up with, in this particular area. Now, I don't think that looks like a truck. It looks more like some kind of a tractor or something like that, doesn't it? But let's look at the other one. Let's see what else is here. Oh, there's a piece of a truck stuck right there. Okay. So none of them really look like that. Looks more like a golf cart on that one. This one's kind of nice. It looks like a broken down farm implement. Now, is that what we asked for? No, it wasn't. Okay. So sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. All right. Now, I want to show you another one that I think is really interesting because I tried this morning and it just did not work. And I want to show you. I think I figured out why. So I'm going to make a little area right here, kind of like this. Okay. And I'm going to go to generative fill down here and I'm going to tell it outhouse. Okay. Now, if you're from Tennessee, you know what an outhouse is. Now, I'm going to put that right there. And I want you to watch what happens because I experimented with this morning and boy, it didn't work. But I found that a lot of times when I restart Photoshop, I can come back in here. Now, look at this. I told it an outhouse and it did that. Let's see what the other thing is. Look at that. None of those are, an outhouse is a little square building outside that was the bathroom because they didn't put bathrooms in houses back then. Okay. So, what I've learned here, y'all, is that there are some words that the generative AI just have not learned yet. Okay. And outhouse happens to be one of those words. Okay. So, if there are words that are, what can I say? Customary to your area. Okay. Like in Tennessee, just about everybody knows what an outhouse is, or people in the country would know what an outhouse is. All right. But not everybody would know. Okay. So just notice that it sometimes it just doesn't do it. And I went in here and I generated it 3 times, y'all, and none of the times did it come out with what I expected it to be. I even gave very specific directions. I said a wooden outhouse with a half moon on the door, and it still didn't do it. Okay. So just know that sometimes it's not going to work properly. Now, other times it's going to work great. Now, watch this. I'm going to do a selection right across here like this. Okay. And I'm going to select that whole area right there. I'm going to go to generative fill and I'm going to say an old wooden fence. Okay. So you would think that an old wooden fence Photoshop could get it. Okay. And it actually, when I tested it earlier, it actually did a pretty good job. but I just want you to see what's going to happen here. And so we'll let it do its little thing right here. Now there's one fence right there. That's okay to me. It doesn't quite stand into the picture very well. Okay, the lighting's not bad, I guess, when you look at the lighting compared to this lighting up here. It's not terrible, but let's see what some of the other ones are. Okay. Oh, now look at that. See, that looks too new right there. Okay, but look at this. There's an old fence. That actually does pretty good right there, y'all. Okay. Let's see what the other one is. Okay, we'll check it out. That one's not bad right there either. This old post and this kind of thing. All right, I think I like the third one the best. Okay, so you'll notice that sometimes the generative fill will do a great job. Now, one of the things I want you to notice is when I made that selection a minute ago, I made it higher at the left-hand side and I came down lower over here because I know that with perspective, okay, the end down here is going to be a little smaller than the end that's up here. As something gets closer, it gets bigger, doesn't it? Okay. And so I got it in perspective here. Now, with that said, watch this, y'all. If we go here and let's draw the same thing, let's go this way with it, okay? And let's just see what happens here. We'll give it the same command, okay? Old wooden fence. All right. And let's see what's going to happen here. It's going to take its time, and it's actually pretty fast considering what this thing is doing. So it's building it in for us, and I'm guessing that the perspective is going to change. It did. Look at that. Okay. So I want you to know that because you've got the ability to change what the picture is going to look like. Now, if I go up here and go to the history panel, okay, and I'll bring this down just a little bit. I'm going to go up. Let's see, there's the lasso when I did that one. And here's this step right here. And that should take us back to this generative field. There it is right there. So see, notice we can walk back in time, and get it exactly the way we want it to be. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you something else about generative fill that I found kind of interesting. If I go, let's go right here. Okay. So if I go right here and I just draw a shape, okay, and I'm going to say generate, okay, and I'm going to say a clothesline, okay. Oops, two words. All right. I'll hit clothesline. Clothesline is just wire hanging outside, the clothes are hanging on and things like that. Okay. Another thing I've learned about generative fill is that the more specific you can get with what you're asking, it's going to do a pretty good job. Now, look at this, y'all. That's just a funny shape right there. That just doesn't work at all for me. Okay. Now, that looks sort of like a clothesline, but it looks like it's just hanging in midair. Okay. Now, there's more like clotheslines. We got a post there and a post there, and we got something hanging right there. Okay. All right, so what I want you to realize is that on generative fill, that you can go in here and make all kinds of changes to the image just simply by making a selection, okay, and then typing in what you want that selection to be down here, okay. So I would encourage you go in here, play with generative fill a little bit, see how it works for you. Try the generative expand, where you're going to expand the sides up here, and just see how that works for you, okay. The AI parts of Photoshop, they are just fantastic. I would encourage you to go out there, experiment with them, and just see what you can accomplish and what you can create. Thanks, gang. Hope you have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye bye.